Alright, so we're here checking out your submission for assignment 8, Squash and Stretch. Let's just start by checking out the animation here. We've got the pyramid kind of going off to the side and squishing and then coming back towards the middle and stretching out. And then kind of shrinking down really thin, going outwards, really big, and then coming back to its original shape. Okay, so there are a few problems with that, and the main idea, I guess, of this assignment really is to squash and stretch an object while still maintaining that object's volume and mass, alright? So basically we want to avoid any shrinking or growing of the object, alright? And just focus on squash and stretch. Now those are very different things. They sound kind of similar, but those are actually totally different concepts. And I'll just illustrate them quickly with some little spheres, alright? So I'm gonna create, well, actually no, since your project is a pyramid here, I'll make pyramids. We'll do pyramids, alright? So I'll come in here and create a few pyramids just to kind of demonstrate the difference between shrinking and squashing. Okay? I'm gonna have a bunch of these things. And let's make them a nice, awesome, bright color so that we can see them a little better against this super gray background, alright? I'll make them blue. Okay, there we go. Now I can see them a little better. So here's a few pyramids. They're all exactly the same. Okay, that's great. So first I'm going to show you what shrinking looks like. Okay, so always kind of keep in mind the basic size of these pyramids. All right, so kind of use these other guys as a guide for just how much volume these things hold. All right. Kind of also, just imagine these with, water inside, like being full of water, okay? Like a water balloon, but pyramid shaped. So just imagine that they're holding a certain amount of water, all right? And that the water cannot escape in any way, all right? That's kind of what you're going for, to retain that inside volume, okay? So if I just scale this down, like so, you can see that this object clearly could not contain the same amount of water as this object, the original sized object next to it, alright? So this has effectively shrunk at this point, okay? So that's not what we want. We want to keep our objects the same size when we animate them. Also, similarly, if I take this and just squish it down in one direction, in the Y direction, for example, okay, then, from this angle, maybe it looks kind of okay. It looks better than this one for sure, but if we kind of check it out from all the way around, we can see that this too is clearly going to hold less water than this one over here. Alright, so this is the original size one. So this one has also shrunk, actually, rather than been squashed. So to do this effectively, to really produce a squash rather than a shrink, we have to displace this volume that we have. Okay, so we have to think about anytime that we push down on this object, all that volume has to go somewhere. And if we're putting pressure downwards, then the only place for all of that volume to go is outwards in the other two directions, all right? In this case, that would be x and z. So if I push this down, then I will always have to make sure to come in to my scale x and scale z and make those bigger and pull those out, okay? So basically if scale y is smaller here, you can see it's 0.477, then I'm going to have to make scale x and z bigger to compensate for that volume, okay? For that squashing that's happening. So this object is kind of like, if you imagined this as a squishable object, this is what it would look like squashed out or squashed down, right? It's shorter, yes, but also the sides have had to come outwards, okay? But it's roughly the same size as this original size one next to it, okay? Just squished. So it's very important to kind of understand those concepts first of all right? So this is true squash here. This is shrinking in this case. And this is also another case of shrinking. So let's kind of look at this again in our animation and see what exactly we have happening. So we've got our original size object. You can see all ones here. And, it's kind of wandering around, so, that's fine. But we've got it squishing in one direction, or actually not squishing, it's just kind of coming inwards in one direction, in the scale Z direction, but you can see that the other two directions here remain exactly the same. They remain unchanged, meaning that essentially by only adjusting one of these, we've created some shrink on this object, all right, or growth, depending on, which way you're going with these values. So anytime you see one moving without the other two moving, you're getting either squish or growth. So actually in this case, I was incorrect. It was growth that was happening, not squishing. So you can see, if we watch it, how this grows in volume here, okay? While this length across and length from the bottom to the top remains exactly the same. So if we continue, we can see our new values, where scale X and scale Z are scaled up, but they are about the same, alright? So that's kind of an improvement. Scale Y, however, remains exactly the same as it has always been, okay? So, again, the rule is anytime that we scale one of these values up, the other two will need to go down to compensate, alright? So, since we've scaled two values up, that means the other one should be scaled down, alright, to compensate. So that's not happening here. So again, we have another case of this object magically growing larger, okay? So we'll continue. Okay, so now at this point we've adjusted our scale Y, all right? It is down. The scale Z is bigger and scale X are bigger. Scale Y is smaller. So this, at this point, is the closest thing we have to a true squash of this object. Alright, we'll go to the next keyframe here. It's roughly the same as the keyframe before it, so, we're not too worried about that. So true squash. And if we pull this further to 19 here, we can see that the scale Y has remained, squashed down pretty far. It's in roughly the same area as it was before on our previous key, but scale X and scale Z have grown a huge amount, alright? So, they've just gotten enormous at this point, alright? So they're way out of proportion with our scale Y, and also just way out of proportion with our original object. If you took this and squashed it down as far as you could, you'd have to I mean, it'd have to be phenomenally thin to reach out this far, okay? So that's a little bit too much, and it winds up looking a lot like growth, okay, rather than squashing. And, you know, kind of the same thing going on frame 20 here. And then 25, you can see how dramatically it seems to just sort of shrink in volume, all right? And at this point, it's just returned to normal. So this is partially correct, all right? As far as scale Y going down, scale X and Z going up, that's correct. But these are these numbers are so huge compared to your original shape that's actually creating a look that this pyramid is growing and shrinking, all right, rather than squishing and stretching out. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and you may want to come in here and just kind of readjust some of those things. You know, we'll go in and just do a simple squash and stretch right now. There's a lot going on, as you can see here in the graph editor. Now we determined that this was not correct. This is growing here. This is as well. Okay, so I'm actually just going to totally get rid of those keys. I'm just going to delete them. Okay. Whoops. A little overexcited and deleted the whole pyramid. So just to delete a key, you can come down here to the timeline and just select a key that you want to get rid of. Just right click and hold and go to delete. You can see that little red tick mark that was there to mark the key before is now gone, indicating that the key is gone. Okay. I'm also going to do that here. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just going to simplify this animation a lot, all right? I'm also going to get rid of this one at 15, 19, and 20. I'm just going to make, at this point, a very, very simple squash and stretch that's just going to be, you know, starting here, some squash happening here, maybe some stretch in here, and then back to normal. All right, that's what we're going to do. So I'm not going to really worry about how it's moving around at the moment. That's fine, you know. We're mostly just focused on making sure that we retain volume here. So, okay, so we've started with this. It's in its original shape, 1, 1, 1, okay? That's what we want. If we come over here to 14, let's start doing a squash. Let's just make a simple squash. To do this, you know, it's a good idea, if you don't want your object to look like it's magically floating around, to move your pivot point to the bottom of the object when you want to do a squash, okay? So to do that, you can just go to your D key, hold down your D key for the pivot tool here. You can grab it with this little yellow button and move it around, just click and drag, okay? And then also, if you hold down the vertex key, okay, the V key for vertex, then you can also move this and snap it to nearby vertices. So that's very helpful to snap this to the bottom of the object. So again, I'm just holding down D and V at the same time, and then left click and drag to move this around. Okay, so now that I've moved it right here, I can start my scale. First, I'm going to scale it down in Y, all right? But of course, anytime I scale it down in Y, I need to scale it up in X and Z to retain that same volume, okay? And actually, now that I've done this, I realized I'm gonna have a problem as soon as I do that. So it's very important also to make sure that you move your pivot point to the center of the object, because otherwise when I scale, you can see it's all going to scale out from this point and that's going to be a little weird. Alright, so we probably want to keep that tool in the center. Again, you know, I can just look at it from a different angle. I do that by pressing spacebar in my scene window. I can see these many different views. Then I can hover my mouse over one of these views and press spacebar to take a look at it. Okay, so now I'm looking at it from the side. Now, again, I can use my D key to move this. All right, and I'm just grabbing this little blue line here and clicking and dragging to move it to about the center there. I'll also go ahead and do that from this view. Alright, this is a view from the front. I'll hold down the D key and grab this little red line and move that to about the center of my pyramid. Doesn't have to be perfect. The closer it is though, the better your animation will look. So I'm going to put that right there. Okay, so now when I use my scale tool, it's going to scale right from the center of the object. Okay? So again, I'm going to come back here and scale X and Z up since I've scaled Y down. Alright? And there's no exact formula, as far as I know, for figuring out exactly what numbers you should plug in. I'm sure there actually probably is an exact mathematical formula for that to retain the volume properly, but we're just gonna eyeball it. So there's that. We've squashed it down, but we've also taken out the sides, right? Grown the sides there. So that makes this a true squash rather than shrinking. We'll just click and drag those three values that we've changed. Right click and select key selected. Okay, so now we have that keyed. You can see the object is squashing. If we look at it from above or from an angle, we can see it squashing down, but still retaining quite a bit of volume. So seeming like could hold a similar amount inside. All right, and then back to normal. Ta-da. You can also apply those same principles to stretch, alright? So, you know, if I'm going to put a stretch in right here, for example, you know, I might start out by returning these all to normal. Here's my normal volume. And, you know, maybe I'll say I'm going to stretch this time instead. So I can just grab it, pull it up in Y, alright? And of course, if I take it up in scale Y, I need to take it down in scale X and scale Z, respectively. Alright, so we'll put in smaller values here, maybe 0.7. We'll grab all of those, key selected, okay? So here we go, we've got that original shape, squashing down, you can see the sides moving outwards. Stretching up, you can see the sides moving inwards, and then back to its original shape. So this entire time, again, it's retaining the same volume as it started with, or at least roughly so. So it's not doing any actual shrinking or growing, it's just displacing mass, okay? So that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. Thanks for watching, and happy animating!